Привет everybody, this is Dr. Frankie here with a brand new unboxing video. In front of you might be a familiar shape if you're a knife nerd like myself. This box has a very unique logo on the front and very subtle, and those of you who recognize it will know what's going on. Well, this is a Shirogorov knife, and this is the F3 and Vanax 35 and G10 with 3D milled scales. Now, I can't read Russian, but I'm assuming that's what it says because that's what this knife is. Now, this is not a brand new knife per se, as in this didn't get made this year. This knife is a couple of years old. Can't exactly tell you how old it is, but I did get this knife. It is in technically brand new condition, never been opened, never been used, and so I was happy to get my hands on it. So here's the knife, the Shirogorov F3. I want to go ahead and give a shout out to my friend Alexei. He goes by @luxury_blade on Instagram, and he sold me this knife at a very reasonable price, shipped all the way from Russia for a very reasonable price. Here's the certificate of authenticity right here. I can't read Russian, but maybe somebody else can help me out with that. Shabazz might be able to read some Russian. I'm only good with Spanish and English, so that's all I've got. But here we go. This is the knife, the F3. So to understand the place that this knife holds in the Shirogorov lineup, maybe we can talk about some of the other models. There's the 111, that's 111 millimeters. It's a slightly bigger knife. And then there are three knives that are iterations of the sort of 95 millimeter model. That's the F3 like this that has two scales and it's a liner lock. And then you have the 95, the model 95 or the F95 that's got it's got titanium scales and a titanium frame lock, and then you have the Hati. The Hati is a hybrid there with a carbon fiber scale and a titanium frame lock side here. But I liked the F3 namely because this gives me some options for customization. And I plan on doing that to this knife, so stay tuned to the channel to see some of the changes that are going to happen to this. I managed to pick this one up. I think that the Olive G10 and the older status kind of gave it a lower price, but I wanted one with this pocket clip and this pivot style. So maybe someone can inform me about how old you might think this knife is. Perhaps you know a little bit more about Shiros than I do. I have a little bit to learn, but I'm really excited to finally have one of these in my collection because Shirogorovs have often been hailed the Sebenzas of the flipper world because they have very good tolerances. They're very well made, meticulous quality and standards of quality and quality control. So super happy to finally have this in my hand. So I'm going to go ahead and find out some basic specs on this knife. We'll bring out the old school ruler here. We're looking at just under 9 inches of overall length, about 8 and 14/15, something like that. The blade overall, the length is right at about 4 inches of cutting length right there. So a nice long blade all the way back to the pivot is about 4.5 inches. The handle itself overall is right at about 5 inches. So about 4 inches of blade, 5 inches of handle, 9 inches overall. You're looking at about an inch of height, a little over an inch of height. We can go ahead and bring out the digital calipers here and we can figure out a little bit more about this guy. This is probably the thickest of the three variants because it's got the titanium scales as well as the, so let's change that to inches here. It's got sort of an interesting, so it's 15 millimeters, 15.4 millimeters, and it's 0.6 inches in overall thickness. This screen is a little bit touchy to try to pick up on the camera, but 0.6, so a little bit thicker than a lot of knives out there. I find that 0.5 inches is about the standard that you find out there, but this one's just a little bit bigger. So let's go ahead and bring out some other knives for a size comparison real quick. Our standard is going to be the Spyderco Paramilitary 2. So notice that the handle length on the PM2 is remarkably similar, but look how much more blade you get from the Shirogorov. Here's a very similar, I would say this is the American equivalent of a Shirogorov, the 0392, about a 3.5 inch blade, slightly smaller in overall profile, but very similar in overall construction, quality, and a whole bunch of other aspects in terms of the smoothness. It's just, I would say that these two are close competitors. Here's another Russian knife that I've got here. This is the Custom Knife Factory Gavco Spinner collaboration. That's a neat knife right there. Bringing it back to the United States, let's bring out a Penguin by Southern Grind. I can bring out a Vanax 2, also a good USA knife right here for size comparison. Lots of folks have that. I'll bring out the RJ Martin ZT0606, one of my absolute favorite knives, also a 4-inch blade. These knives are very similar in overall size, profile, and everything like that. Here's another nice flipper that's sort of tactical in nature. We've got the Jake Hoback Quieback, very similar overall size profile going on there as well. So a couple of reasonable size comparisons there. This is a nicely sized knife. For those of you who enjoy a larger knife, this is going to be for you. Let's go ahead and break this down anatomically so we see what we're looking at. Up front is a full flat ground Vanax 35 blade. Vanax 35 is a very unique steel. It's very similar chemically to LC200N, which we've come to know as an excellent steel. The edge holding capabilities are very good. And the real crux of that steel, and this one as well, is that it contains a significant amount of nitrogen. They replace the carbon atoms in the steel with nitrogen, and that instills a very strong corrosion resistance. So this is going to be a great steel for people who live near salt water or use this frequently in wet conditions. I don't frequently, but I do wear these in the waistband, and I do sweat a lot as part of my work. Doing surgeries in lead all day, sometimes I'll sweat pretty profusely, and I have elicited some rust droplets, some rust stains on a few of my knives over the course of doing this, so I'm happy to have a very corrosion-resistant steel going on right here. And you better believe me when I say that this thing came unbelievably sharp. Now, I did run it over a strop a couple of times because that's sort of my new practice when I'm getting new knives, and it is terrifyingly sharp at this point. It'll slice through paper like a lightsaber, and it's a very, very smooth and consistent edge all the way out to the end. The bevel grinds are very even on both sides. I have nothing to complain about that. Again, very high quality fit and finish, and it's got a nice user-friendly bead blasted finish on there. That's not my favorite finish of all, but it is pretty nice. Moving back to the pivot, this one runs on the single row bearing system. You can actually see that if I bring this up right here, maybe you can see on the inside of the frame that right here you've got the icon for the single row bearing system. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. Of course, it is a flipper. All of the 95mm models are all flippers. That is the only mechanism of deployment, and that is totally fine. I absolutely love the flipping action on this. It is just as smooth as people say that it is. Now, it's not scary smooth. I have right here a contender for the smoothest knife I've ever owned. It's the Gareth Bull Shamwari. This knife runs, it's unbelievable. It's like two clouds instead of ball bearing washers, and it just is incredibly smooth, but at the same time incredibly stable. There's no blade play. Now, this is as smooth as any ball bearing pivot that I've felt, and it's still pretty new. It's just as smooth as my 0392s or any ZT, and it's perfectly smooth. But I will say there's a legend about how smooth these knives are, and they feel great. But in current today's standards, I would say a Koenig Arius is actually a little smoother than this. Moving back to the handles, we've got some beautifully sculpted G10 scales. This is the Olive G10 color. Now, this is not really my preferred color. It is green, so I do like that. I would have liked to get it in black or another color, but I found that those more popular colors actually make it cost a little bit more money, and I intend to actually reinvest that money in a set of customized scales. So stay tuned to see how this thing is going to turn into an absolutely spectacular piece. Very unique, and I'm really excited to bring that to you in the next few weeks. That'll be a nice knife surgery video. The back of the handle is also very handsome. I love how the pivot looks on both sides. It's a very clean design. I like the way that the F3 looks, and in fact, a lot of liner locks, I'm very fond of them now because in terms of the way that it makes the knife look, it hides all of the mechanism of the lock, and it just gives it a very clean and nice look. So super happy with that. I love the clip. I've carried this now for a couple of days already, and I will say that the clip functions beautifully. It's 3D milled titanium with enough spring and ramp to go into a pair of jeans, and it's nice and it's beautiful. It's recessed into the handle slightly, and so it keeps it a little bit more subtle, and this has not caught on anything or scraped on anything, so I'm super happy with that. Well, guys, I'm happy to show you my Shirogorov F3. You better believe I'm going to be carrying this and using this. There will be an upcoming modification video and a final diagnosis in the future. What do you guys think of Shirogorov knives? I'm probably going to pick up another one at some point in my life. Go ahead and click like and subscribe to my channel here. Follow me on Instagram as Dr. Frunky, and as always,